Um, but what makes a good husband is somebody who loves Christ and someone who's devoted to Christ. They see their need. They see what Christ has done for them. And out of that, the Bible says Jesus gave us a little scenario to, was it Peter or the disciples? And he said, who's going to love more in this scenario? And Peter said, the one who's been forgiven much will love much. And a man who is seeing what Christ has done for him on the cross, and he's surrendered his life to Christ, he's going to love much. Who is he going to love? The wife whom God has given him, the children whom God had given him, the family God has given him. He's going to love much because he's been forgiven much. And he's loving much not because his wife is lovable, you know, um, but because God has loved him. Therefore, from that standpoint, that's how he shows love. Now, it gives a better taste, to showing love and loving when the spouse is quote unquote lovable or they do things that please you. But regardless of that, um, you don't love because of that. And that's why worldly people, and unfortunately in the church it happens too, with people who are half baked, I'll say, or not, they don't understand the gospel, that they quote unquote fall out of love. What is that? I don't get that concept. We need to fall out of love, um, because you were putting your love. Your love was dependent on a person, that could fluctuate. But if your love is based off of what Christ has done for you, and this is what Christ has given you, it's not really a choice thing. It's not really an optional thing. You is a command to love. So that's what makes a good husband. I don't know what other type of husband a woman would want. Is it a guy with money? Because he could go spend that money on other women. Is it a guy that looks good? Well, beauty fades, but if a man loves the Lord, he's only going to grow in that love. The beauty's going to fade, right? The money probably might fade too. But the love for the Lord, and seeing how much he's been forgiven, you go from glory to glory. So therefore, the love in the marriage should be getting deeper and deeper as the years go on versus the opposite way. So that's what I believe makes for a good husband or a good spouse in general.
You're muted.
Thank you. So it's interesting when we think about you know what makes someone a good husband, especially when you define good as godly, because that is how Jesus defines it. I think that something unique happens once we look at it from that perspective. Realize that all the things that this world has to offer no longer becomes part of the equation, because if it's godliness, then it cannot be built from worldliness. You cannot have the worldly things somehow now create righteousness. So what we're looking at, the standard we're looking at goes beyond the physical. Now, it just so happens that the world around us, everything is all physical, right? The standards that men and women look at is physical, physical, physical. Look at the physical things you have, the physical things, how tall you are, how short you are, all those things, right? Are you, depending on the kind of person you like, are you light skinned? Are you dark skinned? Does he know how to dress? Does she? Now, I'm not saying you can't have your own preference. That's not the point. What I'm saying is this: that is not the most important thing at all, especially for a good husband. The most important thing is, does this person love God? And when I say God, it's not an arbitrary view of God. Like someone say, well, hey, you know what? As long as he goes to church. I've heard sisters say that, you just got to go to church. Yeah, but going to church does not mean loving God. Going to church does not mean surrendering to Jesus Christ, right? It's like, well, as long as he goes to the gym, but it doesn't mean he's working out. He could literally just walk to the gym, just hang out there, watch other people work out, and go back home. Well, as long as he walks into the gym. No, like you want the person actually living that life. And I think that is where a lot of times people get it twisted. They focus on just the bare minimum. As long as this person does this, we're good. That means that this person is this thing, but it's not so. So I believe a godly husband, number one, or a good husband, number one, has to love God. That's number one. He has to love God. And when I say God, I'm talking about loving God through his son, Jesus Christ. And without that one thing, it's hard. It's hard. There's no other thing we're going to talk about today that's going to be as important as that one thing.